Now, Clywedog in particular, they stock it heavily. How many have they put in this so far this season, Bob?
I don't know how many, but they're stocking about 1,000 to 1,500 a week.
Minimum, right? So they opened on March 6th, and they've put in between 1 and 2,000 every week since then, right? There was loads left in there from last season because they stocked it up until November. But the fact is that although it's a lake that's full of fish, it's not very rich in food as well. There may be some buzzers, but it's an upland reservoir, and those buzzers are really small. There's a reliance up there on flies that terrestrials, basically, like the cork hatch is happening at the moment, although the rain last week has put a dampener on it. There's the cow dung, daddies, and any other flies that are blown onto the water. So with the like sort of it being fairly acidic and not really a hatching type of lake, there's competition for food, and with all those fish in there, that's the big competition, you know. So if it looks like a fly and behaves like a fly, then as far as the fish are concerned, it probably is a fly. Do you look at this service with a smile? Walks in, pint. No, you're all right. You're all right. So, so when I tie the flies, they may not be as impressive as some, but these are the flies I catch fish on. And you know, you don't need to tie a particular fly, especially up with rainbows. So on a river, you might want to tie something that's particular and, you know, just right. But on a reservoir, it can be a blob of seal's fur. A fish will come up and have a look there. All right, not quite that bad. But so, and I as well as tying the fly, I'll tell you when I fish it or when I've had success in it. And the thing about angling is we've all got experience, but experience in angling isn't necessarily the number of years that you've been an angler. You know, someone could have had 1 year starting to fish and then repeated that 39 times. And in the 39 times they learnt nothing or made no associations. So what I'm relating is, these are the flies I fish, this is when I fish them, I'm just saying I catch fish on them. But it might not be the same for you. All right? So, right, where to start? Now, John mentioned that they were fishing a black spider. Well, a big black spider, he said. But I suspect what they were fishing, it's one that is regularly fished at Clywedog, if I can find. Sorry, I did have them. Grab gape, no. Right. So the first one I'll tell you, many of you have seen it, it's a very simple pattern, is the bob's bits, right? Everybody seen the bob's bits? John?
Not for a while.
Not for a while?
Not since.
Not since the last time I was up here tying.
Not since Bob first tied it.
Right.
I tell you, used to use them, John, is Eric and Harley, and they used to catch a lot of fish on them.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with the bob's bits is it's so simple. You think, how am I going to catch on this? Nowadays we get into a point where, unless the fly is really ultra complex, nobody's got any confidence in it. I fish with guys that fish for sea trout and salmon. Unless the fly's got jungle cock in it, they won't fish it. And yet, silver stoat's tail, black wing, black throat, silver body is one of the most successful sea trout flies. So, anyway, yeah, Bob's Bits. When they were talking about a black spider, John,
Yeah.
essentially 12s or 14s, and
They said big black spider.
well, it'd probably be a 10 then, if that's the case.
I'll give him, man. If he wants pig.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can tie them any colour. I like claret. I particularly like sort of a tobacco come golden olive colour, because it's if you tie it really fat, it's a good impression of a cow dung fly, right? And come the summer, you get lots of cow dung up there. Now, Russell Owen ties it with a little bit of a variation, in that on the back end he ties in a pearl butt, and I get the impression that that pearl butt is there more for like sort of the start of an empty wing case, or some sort of bubble that's forming in the case. And all I'll do is I'll take that back down a little and take several turns of this pearl mylar just down around the bend to create a tag or a butt, and then wind back up. Now, black is a good colour any time of the season, but like I say, I like fishing, I suppose you'd call it fiery brown, perhaps even, and it just is so simple. It well defeats. There we go. In fact, I will tie it a fiery brown, I suppose, or a golden olive. Go on, golden olive. And next, when you see one on the water, you'll think, cow dung. Now the cow dung is kind of orange, kind of brown, kind of olivey, and depending on what colour thread you use will depend on how the fly looks. So this will make it slightly darker, but all I'm doing is taking some fur, and let me just wind that down. There we go.
A seal's fur, is it?
Yeah, it's SLF. You can't get I've got some seals fur. I'm sure you have, haven't you? Yeah.
Still get it if you need it.
Yeah. So you can get in certain colours, but I think seals are protected now. So those days of seal clubbing, and they're all over. So you can see it's a really. I didn't realise I had that much on it, but you can see it's a. So far, it's really simple. I haven't been too fussy on the seals fur, because I wanted to have a big footprint, and all I'll use, simple green mouse cape or furnace from Cookshill. I think they're about £3.50 each. Great capes, and if I tie it in by the tip and double the hackle, I get twice the number of fibres available for the same number of turns. So if I just get him there, not even concerned about taking that tip off, and then as I pull back, oops, that happens, so we'll go again. So if anybody's got any questions or comments, look, join in. I do like to gas.
The carved-out fly comes in 2 colours, doesn't it? A male and female.
Oh, I don't know, and I don't think the fish go.
No, I know that. But I'm just thinking that I believe one is like a greenish colour and the other's more ginger.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying about the fiery brown and the golden olive.
Yeah.
Sometimes I mix the pair just to keep it simple in my box, and other times, like one of my favourite flies that I used to fish up there was the golden olive bundle, you know, by what's the guy's name from Ireland? Anyway, the golden olive bundle purely for that reason,
Yeah.
you know. So I think this hackle may be slightly too big, but once again I'm not concerned. So tie it in, and just a couple of turns to take that back. It's not a very good example, but it doesn't need to be, because all I have on the water surface is an imprint of an insect. So I'll just tidy that up now. And that is as simple as it gets. So you can tie it with, depending on the body, you can tie it with an olive hackle for an olive body, you can tie it with a ginger hackle for a ginger one, you can tie it black for a black one, which I was going to do initially, but I diverted. And in addition, you know, if you tie it with a claret one, you can tie a claret. But sorry, I forgot my presentation items. So there you go. So you'll have to pass this around. I'll put it in the hackle pliers. Right. So I've got these in my boxes, various colours: black, claret, orange, and ginger or golden olive. And usually when I fish that, I'll fish a daddy on the point, and I'll fish 2 of those up the leader, or even 1 depending on the wave, right? So if it's flat calm, I'll just fish 2 flies far apart. If there's a bit of a wave on and fish are still coming up, I'll fish 2 and lengthen my leader. But those on the dropper, and this is something that you experience, the fish will come up and have a look at a fly that's on the surface. But they'll nose it, they'll come up, and on occasion, if you fish down past the cages where, is it Bulchigler? Yeah, it's deep water almost immediately as you go through the cages. You can be sat on your boat seat, see a fish move, cast like that, and he'll come up, and you'll see it come up from the deep, and he'll go, yeah, that's on the surface, I'm not taking that, right? So what I do with those is I just tie them on, and I don't gink them at all. The only fly I will gink, or if necessary, is the point fly. And then up the line, I'll have 2 of those. And the difference is, when you cast them out, the fish will come up and he'll take it and he'll go back down. If it's on the surface, he'll come up, nose, and he won't. And that's why you
Is there
will...
a reason for that?
Don't know.
Okay, it's an easier take than a merger. But if they come that close to it, why don't they take it? I wonder if it was due to fishing pressure.
Could be.
There is a lot of fishing pressure up there though in Clywedog.
Yeah.
And the Ospreys.
We're up
These
there.
guys get
We're up there
worse, I think.
Saturday. They got 40 boats,
38 to boats.
38 boats.
Well, it was all right.
36, 38.
Yeah.
And everybody, not many people keep fish.
No, and
I like a few fish, but I often get, I've been there a few times, had a couple of few fish. People get off and they let, how you done, mate? Oh, I had 15, let them all go. And if people
Yeah.
are doing that, those fish are going to get shy on it too.
yeah, some of them are not going to survive.
No,
You know,
true.
so there is a turnover of stock, but
Yeah,
the anglers aren't taking it out.
no.
But I mean, myself and Bob fished up the, was it last year, the year before?
Sure.
Yeah, and we, you know, to finish off the day, we came back down the lake, and it was a bit of a ripple and a flat calm. And I thought, oh, fish are coming up here and there, and I thought, I'll put the dries on. So in 6 casts, I had 5 fish, and every one of them took one of those on the dropper.
Yeah.
I didn't know where it was, but between my point fly and my line, I guessed where it was, and up would come a fish, turn on it, I'd wait a second, and I'd lift, and I'd be into the fish. Remember?
Yeah. No, I've been there, and it's been impressive. Me and Pete were fishing it one day. We couldn't get a fish all day, and it went flat card. And we saw little dimpling by the cages. And
Bob used to put the
we had for 18s on top, size 18.
Yeah.
And they were big fish.
Yeah. Now there's a dilemma, and it's one that you're going to come up against regularly up there, because one, fishing pressure, 2, people are going, oh, you've got to fish a small fly, but if you fish a small fly, you've also got to fish leader material that's finer to allow the fish to fish effectively.
Well, it's laid out naturally, isn't it?
Yeah. And then when you hook a big fish,
Yeah.
either you straighten out the hook, or so there are dilemmas there, you know. But yeah, have a look in the variety of colours. The one in particular that Russ Owen likes has this pearl
Yeah.
pearl tail to it. Right? So that's, if I fish dries, my first go-to will be a daddy on the point with 1 or 2 of those up, depending on the time of year. If there's cow dung, I'll put on a ginger and an orange one. Maybe if there's females about, I'll put golden olive on. But, you know, but other than that, black is always on my cast.
Do you
Because
mostly fish off the boat, or do you fish
off the boat, yeah.
You never
Yeah.
fish off the bank,
No, I hate bank fishing.
do you?
Oh. I mean,
I quite enjoy bank fishing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the way I look at it, because I fish rivers mainly,
Yeah.
every cast I'm covering different water.
Yeah, yeah.
We're on a boat, because you're drifting,
Yeah,
you're
that's
covered in
true.
different water. But on the bank, I'm hoping that fish will swim past me
Yeah.
every now and again. And, I've done it, don't get me wrong, but I have done it. So that's the first one. I'll come back to, so if you tied that on a size 10, with just a seal's fur or a SLF body and a black hackle, that would be fine.
So see that sparkle SLF.
Yeah. So, but even the sparkle, that was a box I picked up. It's
Yeah, that's not a regular SLF.
no, but I'm not
No.
particular about it. So and I've got them in my box. I haven't got any 10s, but I've got 12s and 14s. I won't go smaller than 14. Look, for the very reason you said.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but even on Chew, we had a good day on Chew, John. John was with a booby and a couple of nymphs, and I had some dries on. The fish were just coming up, and you can see that it's not quite a head tail, but it's just a boil in the water. And if you steel yourself and wait, you'll see the line start to go, and you don't need to strike. You just lift into them. So. Bob's bits, great. You can tie them. I do tie some with polypropylene white wing, not because I think it's part of the fly's anatomy, but I can see it on the water.
Yeah.
That
Right,
was the
that-
original, wasn't it?
That
That's
saying,
what Bob Church did originally, wasn't
Yeah,
it? With the
yeah.
white wing.
yeah. And it,
It had a little red butt, didn't it? Bob Church one as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, in
Shipments and all sorts.
yeah, on Farmore, I've been on Farmore, and there've been ginger buzzers hatching, and I've thought, oh, I'll put a big ginger hopper. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Fly is buzzed in between my glasses, and I've gone, oh. And they've had red butts on them. I thought, right, I'll try a red butted one, and then started catching fish. But it's only, you know, some things are so minute that you think they're insignificant, but you know, the fish love them anyway. So, right, next one we're going to tie. Have I tied a cruncher here?
No.
Right. So, occasionally, so dries are generally fished static, right? So static, I'll cast maybe from here and have my leader straighten out as far as the other wall, not far, and I leave it. If there's a fish, I can pick up and put it on there. If not, I'll just fan cast and fan cast and fan cast. It's pointless leaving it out there. You are drifting downwind, the fish are moving up, so always try to put it at an angle so you're covering more than one lane coming up, if you understand. But you can put it on. If there's nothing, you're keeping an eye out for other fish. If you see one, you can lift up, all under control. But it's I use a 6-weight to fish the dries, so I find that quite therapeutic, really.
What lead do you actually use yourself?
I use Airflow G3. If I'm fishing boobies, cormorants, or blobs, I'll put £10 on, and I'll use £8 for dries. If the fish are coming short, I might go down to £6. But purely for the fact that I generally put the fish back, so when I hook them, it's a tough fight. They don't have any quarter, and they're back and swim off a bit stunned, really. So where was I? Yeah. If you've got any questions, carry on anyway. So the cruncher. Now, years ago, there was a guy, Gordon Fraser, and he was very much a nymph angler, and he tied something he called a hackled pheasant tail. And this, I think, was the original cruncher, and some people started taking those crunchers, varying them, and I'd say it's probably one of the most messed around patterns that currently exist, those and buzzers. Now, originally the fly had cock pheasant centre tail for fibres for the tail, but what they tend to do is they're brittle and they tend to break off. So I use now red game or furnace, and just take half a dozen of those, and usually about the same length as the hook shank, or the body anyway, and just tie a couple in. These grow really quick, so if I rush, you'll see, but everybody should be able to tie a pheasant tail. And on this one we can put gold wire in this instance, and just secure that there, 2 turns, and then, as I mentioned, pheasant tail. So this is quite a pale version. I usually use around about 3 fibres. It's good if you get a nice reddy colour from an old bird, but nowadays that's becoming quite difficult to obtain, because where where the supply is coming from is they were poults in August, they were released in September, they're shooting them October, and the birds with the long tails you get in are the ones that are just prior to Christmas or after Christmas, just after the season, or as the season starts to come to an end, and they're the ones that have had the opportunity to grow a long tail. So so what I've done, just tied in this cock pheasant centre tail, twist it slightly to create a rib, and then close touching turns, about 7 or 8 turns, like, to create that fuzzy little body. Now, this is where many of the variations occur. So the body is any colour. The original was just standard cock pheasant centre tail, but the others, you know, you can get dyed cock pheasant centre tail now. You can get bleached cock pheasant centre tail and then dyed. There's so many options now that it's up to you. But when I've seen flies on the water, if I've seen a buzzer fluttering, he looks cock pheasant tail brown unless they're black, right? So I'll just count the rib here now, 5 or 6 turns. And then tie that off. Okay, so on this one it's got gold wire, and oops, and that's not really for the segments, but to support the fibres. So the original had a thorax of pheasant tail, of peacock curl, but I've started using, I don't know whether you can see it there, I'll pass it round. This is Spectra Dub from Hens, and it's called 46. I also use 45, right? Purely because it's great on a greyling nymph, and it's great on the cruncher as well, and it provides a more durable thorax as far as I'm concerned. So
is that like a peacock shade?
Yeah, I'll pass it round now, John. Go on. So all we do is put a little on, and you can imagine now, if I tied some peacock fibres in for a thorax cover, then if I tied this and then pull the thorax cover over the top, it'd be a reasonable pheasant tail representation. And once again, a Greenwells or furnace cape, just take one of the hackles. Some people will tell you the smaller the better. I'll use a hackle that fits the bill really. And if you want, it's the number of fibres that you then tie in. So instead of taking 4 or 5 turns, just take 2 or 3 turns. Once again, I won't pull that end off. I don't think it's, we'll give it a go. There we go. So tie it in by the tip and double it again. So doubling it. The other advantage of doubling a hackle, look, at the tip of the feather, the rachis or the stem is very much thinner. So when I'm tying this in, I can tie it in, or wind the hackle. If I was to use the lower part of the feather, I'd get bulk at the head. But in this instance, no. So we'll take... yeah, it's an old cape, it is, I think. And it's dry.
Good excuse.
It's my excuse, Bob, and I'm sticking to it, right?
That's everybody's.
So you fish this subsurface?
Yeah, it's a wet fly.
Yes.
So
same as on hackle.
yeah.
I like the long hackles because it flattens and looks like a wing.
And well, you know, when you pull in a wet fly and the hackle goes over it, is it a swimming nymph? I don't know. But I catch an awful lot of fish on these. Early season black work well. On even on something like a day 3 or a day 5. I won't pull that off now. I'll just. So we'll have 2 turns, one a bit. So on these you can vary everything really. You can vary the hackle colour, you can vary. I like sometimes tying these with a fluorescent red tie-in silk to give it a hot spot, especially on darker versions. So
I've been using scratches for quite a long time, but some I bought,
right,
and they've got like a blackish or gingish hackle, but 2 hackle. One is UV.
yeah.
It seems to work really well for some reason.
Well, and those, some people are using microfritz instead of the peacock curl, or instead of the dubbing. I tend not to like it. I like my flies slim, and so I don't know whether you can see that one. Yeah. And it kind of, did it come back round?
Oh, this.
Yeah. It'll be in his pocket. It'll be in his pocket now.
I don't know. I put it for size in my pocket.
So, I mean, you know, some people like to tie flies like they like to eat their Sunday dinners, you know, piled high, big and large. And I mean, you look at any insect, and they're delicate things, you know, they really are. So that is the standard version. I'll if I can find it. Yeah. So I'll just do, to contrast it. It'll be quite quick. I'll do a black one, just so that you can see. And there we go. And with the black one, I tend to have silver as the rib, purely because that provides a bit of contrast. But the as well as changing the body and the rib, we can also change the thorax. So the thorax can be any colour you want, and in fact, if it's UV is a good one. But it's a very good way to I won't say fill up your box, but at some point, depending where you go, if you have standard ones, black ones, Nemo cruncher, orange thorax crunchers, it's a representation of maybe buzzers, maybe carixa, maybe pinfry, maybe in the smaller sizes certainly lake olives. You know, it's a same as the pheasant tail before it. It's something that actually can be something and everything. So let me get these. So all I've done is I changed the materials for black. So we got black pheasant tail, black tie-in silk. just tie that in. There. What you might notice in this one as well, and this addresses a problem that you mentioned earlier about you've got to use smaller flies, right? Well, on the standard shank of any hook, you know, this one is a size 10. I'll show you the one in the vise. So this one is a size 10, but if you tie just to the hook point, that size of shank is equal to a size 12.
Yeah, no.
So you've still got the same size hook, but you've got a smaller fly effectively. And likewise,
Strength as well.
yes, right, larger gape, bit more strength. And likewise, I tie these down to 14, but I won't go any smaller. But even sometimes I'm tying them on a size 12, but I tie them short than a size 12 and just scale everything down. So and they grow, like I say, they grow quite quick. So they're very. It's a brilliant pattern to have in your box anyway. Okay. I'm looking for. There you go. So all I'll do is I'll put. So here's a small variation now. One of the flies that we often see on the water is the heather fly, often referred to as the Bibio. So if I give her a thorax, red, right? We could call this one. Yep, we could call this one the Bibio cruncher, and that's the versatility of it. That when we tie in these flies, you think, oh, I need something like that, but I need it slightly different. And don't be afraid to experiment with any of these, because they'll all work. They will all work. When they'll work, I don't know, but you know. Now, I'm going to put in a couple more turns of hackle, because this is a. Do you know, I bought a cape. I don't know whether anybody else buys capes from Chevron. I asked her for a C class or a B class hen cape. It was better than some of my dry fly capes.
Really?
So fine and spiky, and I went back to her and I said, look, Christina, this is too good for a hen cape. She said, well, that's my breeding. And I thought, well, I want something that appears in a feather duster, not one of these. So
You've done it now, haven't you? Because you put the price up there, haven't you?
well, but I sell them as dry flies. Well, don't put this on YouTube, John, so, or edit that out. But you know, you expect a hen hackle to be nice and soft, and yeah, you expect a hen hackle to be nice and soft, but these aren't. So might have to take a couple more turns. Once again, in by the tip, so smaller fibres, and it naturally goes backwards then as part of, you know, the profile that you want. Instead of tying her in as a collar, it'll naturally go back. Instead of, if you tie it in by the butt, it goes as a collar, and then you've got to add more and more and more and more turns of tying silk, which really all it does is then makes the head on the fly bigger. So is that sufficient? Yeah. Okay. So on the first one I put out, that was only 2 turns of a hen hackle, and I just put 4 turns of this hackle in it, just to get the number of fibres that I want there. But once again, it's something and nothing. Give it a little brush out with your Velcro, and it could look quite pleasant. Am I got Velcro here? So there's a little black version that in actual fact, one of the ones that I have regular success on has a bright orange thorax. Now, if you've ever seen buzzers, like, I've been to places like Rutland and Grapham, and they're coming off in their thousands. And you can look over the boat and see these. We were on Chew earlier in the year, weren't we? There were buzzers coming off everywhere. But everyone, when I came up, stopped at the surface, and all of a sudden there was a bright orange blob. As the fly was starting to come out, it was pumping blood into the wings, and it was there for a split second. It was like a mini sunrise. It'd go and then disappear. So one cruncher that I use, I put Glow Bright number 5 or 6, right, in the thorax.
Yep.
And I regularly catch either as it goes out, if there's fish in there, before I've straightened the line, they've taken it on the drop, or as it's coming back up and I hang the flies, that's when I get takes. Right?
It's okay.
You don't have to excuse your friends, no. So, there's a number of variations, and I'll type one more. How are we doing for time, John?
Yeah.
No.
Did you want a break?
No, 8:15.
Quarter past 8. Yeah.
You're all here until 11 o'clock, you know that. I've started, so I finish.
Is that
But-
the stripper comes on?
Yeah, Bob.
No,
He's got his bikini in the car, don't worry.
Waiting for the music to turn up.
Yeah.
I got a joke off my mother, I can't stay.
Yeah. Nightmares. So the thing is that yeah, so many. So there's a variation called the Nemo cruncher, and the Nemo cruncher is one I'll do now. There's a I can't even think of the guy's name. And in fact, anyway, he's a big stillwater angler, and this is one he came up with, and I tie one in black as well, and essentially it's a cruncher with a red rib. Now I'll do a black one. It looks quite effective, and but the question is, you know, there are colour combinations in nature like black and yellow. Stay away, I'm gonna sting you. And black and red is another one. You've got the Burnet moth. It says stay away. One with yellow cheeks or gold cheeks on it as well. So black with the gold cheeks, because I've looked at buzzers and I thought it looks as if it's got gold on its cheeks. We were up on Chew, and I'm going to tie the fly shortly anyway. And the buzzers that were coming up, they were black and yellow. And I thought, that looks like a fly I know, called the owl. Is it the owl? We'll find it now. So this one, Don't need black, do I? Not on one of these. What I need is natural.
Alan,
Yeah.
the black and yellow buzzer that is on the tube, that's not throughout the year, is it? That would be at a certain time of the year, and then the colour will change.
Yeah, it was early season. That was beginning of April, Bob.
Yep.
Beginning of April. But then, God,
The temperature alters and
olive.
yeah,
Olive you see up there, but
change
the
the colour then.
yeah the grenadier still hatch off there. So have you heard of you've heard of a fly called the grenadier? Basically an orange soldier palmer, if you want. They still hatch off, but if you fish competitions, you can't fish a fly big enough because they're like this.
Yeah.
But essentially, I like tying my grenadiers with a palmed body, but some people just tie it with the hackle at the front.
Yeah.
Now, when you go back to it, like John Horsey has a fly called the carrot fly, bright orange with a big hackle at the front. It's a dry grenadier as far as I'm concerned, you know. But it really works at chew. So so with the buzzers, early season, you know, black, dark brown. Around about now they'll start changing to olive, ginger, and the lighter colours. But then back end of the season they'll go dark again. Yeah.
It's
So-
to do with the water temperature and all sorts, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's lots, but that's the thing that some anglers will buy a fly and go, oh, he's been catching on that. Well, do you understand why he's been catching on that? No, I haven't got a clue. But if you observe, and this is where that experience thing comes in, over the years, certain things happen at certain times of the year, and you go, oh, I caught on those, or I saw those this time last year. And then you develop a technique to address that, because next year you go, they're back, I'm going to put this on, oh, I'm catching fish. Damsels, for example, you know, daddies, for example, September, October, when they've hatched those leather jackets and they're on the water. It happens every year. But some people don't take any notice of what's going on around them. I think I mentioned, may have mentioned to you, but last time I went down to a lake to try a new rod I had it, and I got there and oh yeah, and there was a guy next to me. I said, oh, any luck? He said, no, not yet, he's just stocked. They'd all been waiting for this fishery. Right, now he's stocked. It was like sort of beep, 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 and they were off. Anyway, there were fish rising out in front, and I thought, oh, I wonder what the fish are rising for. And I saw some lake olives coming up, and I thought, that's interesting. Up would come a couple of lake olives, start to drift like a gulp, gulp. And I thought, right. I said, you been here long? And he said, oh, all day. Been waiting for him to stock. I said, you haven't had a touch? And he said, no. I went, oh, right. So I went in my box and I found a hare's ear about size 14, scruffed it up, put it on, a little bit of gink, and I thought, right, I wonder. It was drifting, gulp. And that was about third or fourth cast. The fella said, what have you caught that on? And I said, oh, gold root hare's ear. What's one of those? He said. And I said, well, you can have one if you want. I won't fish one of those. I always fish a cat's biscuit. And I went, right, okay.
That's why he's not catching.
Right, well, we've all met them, haven't we? And so, got the fish in, it was about £5, put it back. Fish started coming on the rise again, scruffed it up a bit, out they went. gulp, into another fish. I don't believe that, he said. You've been here 2 minutes, you've had 2 fish. I've been here all day. He went off to the owner then. You say you stopped, you. He said, what are you fishing again? I said, hare's ear. I said, it's a very good representation of a lake olive if you scruff it up. What's a lake olive? So I said, well, I've had the 2 fish, I only want to come and try a new rod. I've done that. I said, I'm off. No, there were platforms, no sooner had I stepped off the platform, he was straight on it, whacking his cat's biscuit out. But I'm sure he didn't have any fish after that either. So that comes back to the observation. So obviously in this one, Rob Edmonds sort of decided that for some reason he's seen something in the water that caused him to create the fly with this profile. So it's a standard cruncher with the red holographic rib. But I tie that one in natural and black. Right, the black is more striking. On certain times of the year I've caught more on the black than I ever would. But I also tie it, instead of the natural pheasant tail, natural peacock herl. So the green peacock herl, like the red hollow jolbach. But instead of just putting in a throw tackle, I give it a full collar, and I do it with black peacock herl as well. It's an impression of a nymph or something.
It's a generalised impression of something that they expect to see, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, many of the guys tie those in. You mentioned UV.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thorax are UV. Some of them tie them for the pin fry, because some of the pin fry can be brown with a little bit of pearl, and others are slightly darker with a little bit of pearl. We can imply or infer what we think it is, and if it fits in with what we've got in our head, it's like sort of we've got confidence going down the line and go, oh, there's pin fry here, this is a good pin fry imitation. I've caught a fish, it must have worked, and the links are all...
They all join up then, don't they?
Yeah, so next time they see pin fry, it could be nothing to do with it, but they go, oh, pin fry, I've done this. Oh, there we go again.
But you're fishing in a confident manner, that's the thing.
Right, so there we are.
They're very similar to glister, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
much softer though,
Yeah.
much softer.
There's 2 gates, and there's there, there's a gate there, there's a gate there.
So,
The left side of
on a dry line,
Gate.
even in a flat calm,
Yeah.
straight down.
inched back,
Yeah.
Straight. Come to the back.
Yeah.
these are really good. Top of the water, these are really, really good from now onwards.
What's that in the
What?
It's up and
Top of the water, yeah.
It's an Irish expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one question I had was, why is it called a dry line when it gets wet? Right.
Who asked that?
Oh, I knew a casting client, not someone being clever, but it's the one thing that you get feedback off people who are starting fly fishing,
Yeah.
that you go, oh, maybe the pattern that I have isn't as good as I thought it was, because I'm saying, oh yeah, it's a dry line, and they're giving it, it's wet.
Yeah.
So then you got to explain
20 odd years ago.
dry fly fishing. Yeah, but they get wet, and all of a sudden you go, here's your money back, I'm off. So another fly I use successfully up at Clywedog is called the Midas, and I don't know whether anybody heard of the Midas? Have you?
Little gold head.
You haven't seen it, right? So the Midas is quite a large. It's a dry fly. It's often tied on heavyweight hooks because
It's got a long snout on
No.
it now? Oh.
no. So it's often tied on heavyweight hooks because it's not designed to sit on the surface. It's in semi-submerged, and even if it does go under, it's often taken as well. Now, the original, once again, was tied with like sort of a fiery brown seal's fur, But since then you can get them in black, you can get them in claret, you can get anything. When I tie it, you'll probably see that it resembles, once again, a number of other things. Right? It could be a beetle, it could be a carixa, and it all depends on where you look at it. So it's a very simple tie-in, and I've got some a dark brown colour, but essentially we just tie almost to the bend, and before we get there we tie in some nylon. Okay, so this is 4 pound float, float fishing, but any nylon you see fit, right? I think it was designed by yet another English international called Paul Davidson, who's a Geordie, and he did it one night while he was drunk, and he thought, I'm going to tie this up and I'm going to try it tomorrow. And as it happens, it was a closely guarded secret for many years. So just tie it down, tie in the nylon as a rib, and then pick your colour. So I'll go for this rusty kind of brown. And it's tied fairly fully, and once we get that in, I'll give it a little bit more. So it's tied fairly fully initially. So from here, I'll just... So when I do my dubbing, often I've got a gap, and I don't slide it up because it loses the connectivity. So what I sometimes do is I'll leave the tie-in silk there, do my dubbing, and then I wind the tie-in silk back down so that at the point it starts, it's actually meeting with the hook shank. So
Top tip.
yeah, that way you don't have to get involved with barbs and bends. So I'm not too worried about the nicety. Once again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not too worried about how nice it is. It's not there to please the fly police, you know. Let me have a look at the fly backs. Oh, you'll never catch anything on those. It's purely designed. Well, Elvis has left the building, has he, John?
Hi Tim.
So
Fine, thanks. Set.
and we come up about 2/3.
It's fly time, man.
Yeah, come up about 2/3, and then we grab maybe 10 strands. Sometimes less.
No, that's 10.
Yeah. Well, look, 6 to 10. So that's 8. Right. So that's 8. But when we tie them in, we don't tie them in tips first. We tie them in with the butt ends first. Okay. And they're tied either side of the body, and then pulled in. Okay. So you can see that he must have been drunk because he put the pheasant tail fibres in backwards, right? So, I shouldn't have done that because I've missed the rib out. Okay, so I'll waste those. I was getting ahead of myself then. So the rib, I don't think he had any silver, so he just tied in nylon. Just secure that, and it's often tied as a big fly, so size 10. Can be seen in a wave, And that's the thing about dry flies, the bigger the wave, the bigger the fly. And where am I? How many am I tying in, Bob?
8.
Ish.
4 each side.
Yeah. Are you going to count these afterwards?
I'm checking the quality control. and
Yeah.
everything.
Thing is, I don't think the fish care, do they? Not really. So
New glasses.
once again, tie them in on the side, and you can see that they stick backwards. Okay, so nice and easy. And then just remove the waste there. And then you got a big bunch of the dubbing again, and we actually create a bit of a thorax here. So once again, it doesn't need to be neat and tidy, and you'll see why it doesn't need to be neat and tidy shortly. So I've just created a lump of a thorax there, and then I'll take one of these this time, and I'll tie it in by the base. So pulling back. And a couple of turns out the front. Go. And then wind back to push that hackle backwards. And because I forgot my gold sparkle, what I've had to do is I've had to manufacture a little bit of gold from some sparkler mix I've got. So usually it's, what do you call it, Derek? What do you refer this to?
Gold glister.
Yeah, gold glister. Have you got gold there, John?
Well, it's
Bob's had it.
which
No, that's all right.
you want dubbing?
Yeah.
No.
So what you do is you create a kind of gold head with the glister dubbing, right? Which is, you'll see the effect that I've got here. Okay. Now, there's some species of Corixa that have got yellow eyes. There's some species of Corixa that have got red eyes. So when I pass this around, and you take a look at it, because I'm going to bump it up now with, let me sort these legs out. So around about near the bend, either side, and then these are RAF flies. Do you know what RAF? No. Rough as, right? It's meant to be an RAF fly, right? So once again, all we do is we then give it a good brush. You can imagine perhaps it being a beetle because it's a bit blob-like. You can imagine that they're supposed to have been legs, but they may even be paddles now, because it's seals through, it traps a lot of air, so underneath it could be have that air bubble which would be silvery. It sits in the surface as opposed to on it, and that's where Corixa sit when they right on the meniscus. So I've done really well with this fly at Chew, Rutland, Grapham and Clywedog because of the beetle-like qualities. So that's a Midas, and if I haven't done it justice, I do apologise. Have a look on Tim Joyce is a good example. He fishes Grapham a lot, and the Midas is one of his go-to flies. When he's tying it, he's like, oh, this fly, whoa, because he's got it in his head, it's on his line as he's tying it, he's lifting into a fish. I've got to tie more of these, they
work.
Yeah, right, but there's nothing special about it, it's not really tidy, but the fish go, that's something that I want. Alright, so
If you do one more, that'll be...
are you sure?
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, well, okay, so I'll do a variation, or not a variation, but so I get my booby cord and I cut it up. Okay, I'm not going to tie a booby.
No, I was going to say, I tried putting it out in the microwave.
Yeah,
It didn't work for me.
it needs an oven,
Ah,
gas mark 4 for.
is that right?
So I'll send you a link to a thing, but I tend not to I tend not to put it in the oven.
Yeah.
I use it as is, but you can get ready-made ones now from Celtic Blob do them, Kindale, and they're ready cooked as well. But if you want something that's 5mm, you've got to use a 7mm booby cord, because when it heats up, it does shrink.
It's oven, not microwave.
Yeah.
Microwave didn't work.
No.
I thought that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Some people use a lighter, John, and just singe the ends of
Good
it.
point, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's all down to keep going at it and practice. Right.
Yeah. So, what am I going to tell you now? Right. So many of the flies I've tied tonight have been tied on Canson B175s, okay? Including that Midas, which is actually a dry fly. But really what you should do is you should cater the hook, the wire gauge on the hook for the fly you want. But there's an element of, if you go too fine, it'll get bent out, especially on reservoir rainbows. So a good example is a B170, I think Hanak, their 530 is a good one. There's all sorts, really. So this one's going to be fairly large. All I'm going to do is 2 flies, only a short period of time, look. And I've cut the booby cord. So I'm going to do a suspender and I'm going to do a shuttlecock. So the difference between the shuttlecock and the suspender buzzer, as far as I'm concerned, is suspender uses foam, shuttlecock uses CDC. Okay. Suspenders are great to see, okay, but not always as effective as a shuttlecock. So it's worth having a couple in your, or a couple of varieties in your box. Now, obviously, white is easiest to see, but in some light where it's glassy, you can't see it. So I use black, right? And in actual fact, some of the some of the original suspender buzzers. They were called sugar cubes. Do you know a sugar cube?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Right, sugar cubes. It was just a square of ether form. And you know, they tie them with white and have a felt marker just to colour them. I remember fishing with a guy up in the south arm of, no, north arm of Rutland. In a competition, he beat the pants off me. He was fishing a size 16 sugar cube hares year, that and there were lake olives coming off. Hence my earlier comment about lake olives and hares years. So, right, I did mention earlier. Hopefully I've got it. Yes, I have. So there's a universal pattern that lots of people use, called the yellow owl. Now, the yellow owl comes back to that fly that I said earlier. Hey, that looks black and yellow. So a yellow owl is essentially I left my there's a particular colour called Hendrix, I think, something like that. Anyway, a particular colour tie-in silk that you can use, and it's pale yellow. And what I'm going to do, because I forgot my black marker, is I'm going to tie in some black tie-in silk as a rib. And now some people prefer using curved hooks. I always use straight hooks. Okay.
I put mine on a jig hook
Right.
because you get an offset with the eye,
Yeah.
so you can put the foam straight up in line with the shank.
Exactly. Ah, right. So it hangs. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's offset.
Yeah.
So you can thread the tip it easy through the eye because it stands out from the foam.
Yeah. So, well, that's a top tip. Are you using jig hooks or are you using?
Yeah, jig river tungsten bead jig hooks.
Right. Not the fulling mill, because there's a different special now that they use,
Okay. No,
which
it's-
instead of having that hook, it's a jig hook with the hook eye being horizontal. So all I've done is I've gone up and gone back down just to create a little bit of a body there, and I'll just rib it with the black tie-in thread just to create that little segmented effect. It is a buzzer after all. You can vary this as much as you want with a pearl bit or a pearl bit at the thorax. But what I'm hoping to show you here is a way of securing that foam. Yeah, often they're referred to as top hat buzzers as well. But if you look at the foam, you want it coming off at, say, that angle. So all we do is we cut at maybe a 60-degree angle, so we've got a wedge. And if we tie that wedge in, do that. What I can do is I can trap this in quite successfully. But as John said, it sticks up at a at a slightly different angle.
I don't want to go straight and then.
Yeah, you
The
want
fly
it
sits-
like that, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So John wants it like that. I don't mind it like that. There is a video called Bugs of the Underworld, and it's fairly old. It's been on the internet for 15, maybe 16 years, maybe longer. It's not quite good quality, but there's Bugs of the Underworld midges. You'll see various stages of them. You'll see the larva, you'll see the bloodworm, and then you'll see them pupate, and when they come up to the surface you'll see the pupa doing this. And they try and bang against the surface film until they like sort of pierce it, and then immediately they flick up and create a U. So the point I'm trying to make is, at no point do they sit there with a curled butt. So on every buzzer I see hatching, I'm looking at it, it hits the surface and it just goes straight. So choice of hook is down to you. Did the job for him. This was back in the 90s, I think. The fly that did the job for him was the good old Jolbach.
Which they didn't know about in Tasmania.
Nor did the rest of the UK apparently. So
Okay.
Sean Watkins. No, Sean.
right. So
You don't know Sean.
yeah. So how does everybody tie the CDC in?
Two and two back to back.
2 and 2 back to back. So you'll see many people, they go, oh, I only ever use 5, or I use this, or I use that, right? So depending on the size of the fly will depend on the number of feathers you need. So if it's a big fly, obviously you've got to
The whole packet on.
yeah, put a whole packet on. Extravagance, yeah. Yeah, tie it like that. So yeah, you tie a lot on, but sometimes that leads to having some of the quill sticking in, sticking up, shall I say, and it does cause issues. So all I do is I roll them. If I feel those quills are too stiff, I'll snip like sort of a V out of them, right? And then what that leaves is just the fibres, but nothing else. So if you offer it up, and I try to get as much over the eye as I can, pinch and loop so it comes down, because it can twist.
How many feathers?
I've put 5 in here,
5.
or 4 I think. 4. Okay, yeah, 4 in there, right?
From the back and forth at the front, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but at the front, sometimes you can fold them over, but I tend not to. But I'll cut it square, and then what happened there? There you go. And this one is all it's called is a black quill, or black quill cull. So to hide that bump, then what I would have done with that quill body, I would have put some resin on it, and then just to hide that bump, put a thorax or some form of dubbing over it, the colour that you want it. In this instance, black, right? Now, in calmer water, a cull is a better option than a big fly, right? So you'll often see those people that are going, oh, I had 20, I had 30 fish, or whatever, they often fish 2 CDCs, okay? And there's nothing special about it. It just sticks up, and it resembles a natural fly. So natural quill, if you want to call it an olive quill, just change the thorax colour for whatever you want. Now, a lot of people are going to see what I'm going to do next and go, oh, that's sacrilege. Okay, for uniformity, I'm not too worried about the tips. Everybody says, oh, it gives a good footprint. It's sticking out of the water. It's not going to affect the fly's footprint. So for me to get uniformity in and trim all these up, I then usually just take off a bit, and that then sits. This is my little flag in the water. This is the bit I can see, and the rest of it is just under like a hatching buzzer, right? Fabulous in calmer water, and you can go down to 18s if you want to. I would have gone off the water by then, I think. But so that's the last fly. That's the natural black quill CDC.
That's brilliant, Alan, thanks. As usual, a very entertaining evening, lots of info,
Yeah.
and much appreciated, thanks.
No worries. Thank you, guys.
Alan, you happy for me to put that on the WhatsApp group?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
Are you YouTubing, John?
Yes, yeah.
Good.
Well, you'll see the bits you fell asleep through.